What is up, basketball fans? Thank you for tuning in yet again to another episode of the Harold McBasketball podcast. I'm your gracious host, Harold McBasketball, with my co-host, I know Ball Paul. As always, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. They said we wouldn't be back. There were some rumors swirling after last week, but we are back once again, bringing you some Eastern Conference power rankings this week. A bit too early, but I think it's going to be fun to go through the teams. What do you think, Harry?
Yeah, I think so too. There's been a lot brewing in the East right now, and it feels like there's a lot of real estate that's up for grabs in this conference. So excited to dive through it and kind of see what teams might be on the come up, and maybe what teams might be on the downfall. So we can. I'm okay with just starting from the top right now. I assume we both have the same number one team as biased Celtics fans. I have them one. Who do you have?
I was cheeky. I just said the Bucks.
Nah, okay, fine.
So just real quick, we're going to put a huge asterisk on the Heat. We're just going to assume they get Damian Lillard, which is
Yeah,
maybe a
yeah.
crazy assumption.
Feels inevitable, and I think the Packers are putting together is pretty good. So we're gonna make that assumption. If he ends up not going to the Heat, then you can definitely drop him a couple of spots in the rankings. But for now, we're gonna assume he's going there.
And that's all we're saying about it. We're not delving into anything further than that. But yeah, I don't know. I was just trying to be kind of funny. Bucks or Celtics, I think, are going to be, the one or the two. I just said the Bucks. The Lopez twins reunited. Embarrassing loss to the Heat in the playoffs last year, so I think they'll feel rejuvenated. Middleton back. They took my number one spot, and Celtics took my number two. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's fair. I'd them flipped. I'd Celtics one, Bucks two. When I was first doing this, I debated putting the Bucks lower. I think the first time I did have them like 3 or 4, and I was like, well, Giannis just had knee surgery that I think is probably a bigger deal than people are making out to be.
hmm.
Middleton was hurt all last year, is getting kind of older. Brooke is like 37 now. Holiday was really inefficient last year. So it feels like a team that could be sliding a little bit, but then I also just like looked at them last year and like they were still the number one seed last year without Middleton. So they're just getting him back. They still have Giannis, who's a top three player in the NBA. Their defense is great. They're still going to be incredible. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple of guys just sit out a few more games than last year, which is why I think they'll probably be in that second spot behind the Celtics. But I expect another dominant year out of the Bucks, and I think they'll be fantastic again. I think they've got a few more seasons before we need to start talking about if we should expect some kind of fall off from them.
Agreed. And new coach Adrian Griffin, that'll be kind of interesting. So maybe that's a reason to kind of knock him down a peg. But ultimately, it's same core group, and the Lopez twins reunited. Man, there's so much power in that.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
You got Celtics one, Bucks two. I got it flipped. Who you got at three?
Three is where I put the Heat. I think the Heat will essentially leapfrog the Sixers once they get Lillard, and kind of assuming that things don't get cleaned up for the Sixers and they have to move off Harden or the vibes are just bad.
Yeah, I'm kind of expecting bad vibes from the Sixers. I
I
went
think
Cavs at
the
three.
vibes are very bad just in general right now for the Sixers. So it's almost not an expectation. The vibes just are bad in Philly right now.
Yeah, and just I think Embiid won his MVP, so that's kind of like the band-aid ripped off. It's going to be interesting to see how he comes out of that next season. I kind of expect him to not go as hard in the regular season. New coach Nick Nurse. I also kind of think if Harden and Embiid both stay, Nick Nurse is going to kind of. I think he's a great coach, but I could see there being a bit of turmoil there. I don't know what it is, but I don't think he might not be able to assert enough of a presence in the locker room for everybody to get along there, and not a lot
Yeah,
moves. So
that's a fair point about Nick Nurse because he definitely worked with smaller personalities in Toronto. Like a lot of humble players over there with like Siakam, Van Fleet. Even when they brought over Kawhi, like that's a very soft-spoken superstar. And Harden and Embiid are big personalities to manage. And Nick Nurse is such a big defense guy that I could see I could see like him and Harden not being the best of friends, especially seeing that Harden's already unhappy. So they're in a weird spot. I think it makes them a little bit worse, but I still do really like the Sixers because I think Maxey and Embiid is still one of the better duos in the East. So although I think the Heat are going to leapfrog them, spoiler, I still had Sixers at 4.
All right, I have them at 5, the Heat at 4. So actually, I have
Interesting.
the Cavs
Who's
at
who's
3.
3 then? Who's 3 then? You got Cavs at 3?
The Cavs at 3.
Okay.
Um, yeah, kind of second guessing it right now live on the air, but I think from last year they're going to have the same amount of wins, like around 50, 51. And I think they got a little bit better, a little bit deeper with Struess and Yang, as well as your boy Amoni Bates, who had a great game after your call out.
Yeah, yeah, called it, called it. One of my better takes of the offseason. We'll see if that actually translates into anything, but he looked good in the summer league.
So yeah, I mean the 3, 4, 5. I think there could be some mixing up there, but I think the Cavs are just going to be a great regular season team. Donovan
Yeah,
Mitchell, that group afloat. Garland,
yeah,
awesome, probably awesome, obviously.
yeah. I think Cavs at 3 is actually a good take. And looking at that now, I think that makes a lot of sense. It feels like the young teams just get so many games out of their good players that it puts them in a position to pass over some of those older teams. Because even if the Heat do add Lillard, it's like Lillard's still probably going to miss like at least 15 games. So is Jimmy Butler. Whereas with the Cavs, it feels like all their guys are Iron Men. Garland missed a little bit of time last year, but between like Mitchell, Mobley, um, who's the big guy with the afro? Blanking on him. Jared
Jared
Allen.
Allen.
Between all those guys, like they all play so much, and the defense is so good that it feels like they're going to stockpile wins next year. So I definitely kind of like had those top 5 as like a pretty tight group, and I think there's a really big gap after that. And so the Cavs are definitely in that mix, and the Cavs, I could totally see them doing better than the Sixers, better than the Heat, maybe a couple of games back, not really sure, but I think those 3 could end up anywhere between 3 through 5, but I don't really see them falling out of that range.
Yeah, I completely agree. And Butler had a fairly healthy season last year, so I think that kind of puts him on trend to have a less than healthy season this year. But we'll see. He's
Yeah,
playoff
yeah,
Butler today.
yep, fair, fair. And okay, we'll also have to see with the Heat, especially being a little bit more shallow, letting some guys go. Like Vincent's gone now, Struess is gone. They're gonna
Right.
have to trade a lot of guys to get Lillard. So maybe they're a team that I would expect them to be very good in the playoffs, but maybe they would slip a little bit in the regular season. Just having less depth and having some older guys who are gonna sit out some games.
And yeah, again, last year 44 wins they had. They were the 8th seeds. So
Yeah.
uh, anyway, so to recap, I guess mine: Bucks 1, Celtics 2, Cavs 3, Heat 4, Sixers 5. Yours: Celtics 1, Bucks 2.
Heat 3, Sixers 4, Cavs 5. And I think, and we kind of mentioned this beforehand, that the top 5 are pretty easy to go through. This isn't like a huge mystery in the East. Like these are clearly the top 5 teams in the East. Where things are gonna get interesting is from here on out as we get closer to like the play-in tournament and those teams. These are the teams I'm really excited to talk about. So who do you have at 6?
Yeah, this is when it gets spicy. This is when we might get clipped and sent these late next year being like, you guys are fucking idiots. Okay, so my 6th is the New York Knicks, who added Dante DiVincenzo this offseason. They lost Obi, who wasn't playing much really. He was kind of out of the rotation unless.
This pod is a huge fan though. Like this is an Obi Toppin
Yeah,
podcast.
we are. Yeah, last year I got they had 47 wins. I'm kind of predicting they'll have 48, 49 this year, just because I think Dante is going to be a good rotation guy, more comfortable as a group. Brunson leading the way, so they took my 6th spot.
I also had them at 6th. I feel like they're a pretty safe bet to put there.
Yeah.
They just have like a nice, well-rounded team with like Brunson who had like a near All NBA season. Randall had his struggles in the playoffs, but still an incredible regular season guy. Barrett is maybe a little underrated at this point. He's like, what is he, like 23 and averaging 20 points per game? That's
Yeah.
awesome. I could still see him taking another step at some point. Love the addition of Josh Hart for them. Love them adding DiVincenzo. Yeah, and I'm sad to see Toppin go, but it is true that they just weren't gonna be able to find the minutes for him with Randall. So I think I'm okay with them letting him go. Although I'm a big fan of that player, but I think they'll be pretty much just as good as they were last year. So I see them sticking around this 6th seed spot.
For sure, yeah. And I'm happy to see him go because he's going to have such a better opportunity with my
Very yeah,
seventh team,
very excited to see him on the Pacers. Okay, yeah, give me your 17 then. Transition.
the Pacers. Which, okay,
That
I can hear the oohs and the ahs from the audience right now.
yeah,
But
explain yourself. Make your case.
okay. So the biggest part of my case, I guess, is that Halliburton missed like 26 games last year. Um, they won 35. So, with Halliburton playing more games, I think they would have, surpassed 40. And yeah, they added Obi Toppin, champion Bruce Brown, and their rookie Jarris Walker has looked pretty good in summer league. So they definitely got better this offseason. Only lost O'Shea Brissett, who came over to our side of town with the Celtics, and then they lost Chris Duarte, who was also not a huge rotation piece for them. So I kind of see the big jump happening. Big Obi Toppin fan, obviously. I think I think they makes a lot of sense as a team, which I think I've mentioned before with that modern five who's a great paint defender, can stretch out. Obi is like a super versatile four, and then Hallie at the helm of the ship. I think he is maybe the best point guard in the league at this point. So
Yeah. Yeah, the Miles Turner thing really worked out for them. Because for years and years, they were trying to trade him, because they essentially had him and Sabonis, and they're like, Sabonis is going to be the guy. We're going to get rid of Turner. But then ultimately, like the Halliburton deal came around, they let Sabonis go, and now Turner is like the perfect center, to put in this offense with Halliburton. Really good in the pick and roll, incredible shot blocker, like one of the best shot blockers in the league. Can stretch the floor a little bit. Very dynamic player. I'm a big fan. I think that's an awesome fit. And all of a sudden, you just have like some better players to put around that pick and roll. Funny enough, it's like I could see their offense mirroring the Kings' offense a little bit. It's a different setup because Sabonis is more of like a passing center, but pretty much what you're doing is you've got this like really good point guard, really good center. Put those guys in pick and roll and just surround them with shooters. And I think they've done a good job of that. I think Matherin's gonna be awesome. I think Toppin's gonna be great. Bruce Brown, I like, even the contract is not gonna be great, but it's only 2 years, so that's not too bad. So I like the Pacers. I actually had them at 8. I think they're also going to make a jump this year, and I think they'll be a playoff team.
who was your seventh then?
My seven was kind of a boring pick, and this is one that I went back and forth on. It's kind of gross to like put them here because I hate this team, but I decided to put the Hawks at 7 because I
Okay.
still think it's a good team. It's like I feel like their ceiling is definitely capped, but they have two very clear all-star players in Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. And like the rest of the roster just like makes sense. It's like I like Capella. They got some good wings. They got like Sadiq Bey now. Now they got DeAndre Hunter. I think he's coming along as a prospect. So they got these 3-and-D guys to pair with their two good guards. And then like some good center play. So I think it's a well constructed team. And I think they're starting to hit their stride now and kind of taking that next step to go from what was at one point a pretty young team in the East to now like, maybe more like middle of the pack veteran team. And I think that experience will kind of just give them a bump over some of these younger up and coming teams.
Agreed. Yeah. They were my eighth team, so we have those flipped.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, take your pick there. Like I said, I think they're a little bit boring, but I think they'll be good and they should have no problem being in that 7th or 8th spot.
yeah, and they're under Quinn Snyder now, who I think we both like as a head coach.
Awesome coach.
They really only lost John Collins, who had kind of lost his place with that team. Okongwu, we kind of expect him to keep getting
Love
better.
Okongwu. Love Okongwu. I think there's a debate that could be had there between him and Capella as to
It
who
seems
the
like it's
better
happening.
player is. Yeah, and they've essentially split minutes the last 2 years.
Right.
So I think at some point he'll get his shot. Granted, they're very similar players, so I guess it doesn't really matter. It's definitely good to have both of them. I don't think you trade Capella by any means, but it's definitely a nice luxury to have both of those guys.
And then they drafted Kobe Buffkin, who I'll be
Great name, great name. If we're gonna do like a name redraft, that's a top 5 pick right there.
yeah. I think we've said so many guys are top 5 picks, so we're gonna actually have to do that one time.
Yeah,
I
we'll
know
have to do the
nothing about
name
Buffkin.
draft. I still think Buffkin's top 5 though. It's a great name.
Buffkin, yeah. Do you know anything about him? I just don't.
I've seen a few of his highlights, and he definitely looks impressive. But I'm definitely not a Kobe Buffkin expert by any means. I just like his name.
But yeah, like you said, this team, they've stayed pretty similar from last year. They had 41 wins. They had the coaching change, so you kind of expect them to, um, you know, have the same amount, maybe a couple more wins from 41 last year. Trey and Dejounte, we know what they've gotten those guys. And if Quinn Snyder can kind of get Trey to play a bit more off ball to kind of get the rest of the team more involved, I think they have an even higher ceiling, but I think that's easier said than done.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see, but it would be nice to see them run an actual offense because it would make sense to have DeJounte do more primary ball handler duties since he's the worst shooter, and to try to get Trey some better 3-point shots. Because what's still so weird is like he's clearly an excellent 3-point shooter, but his percentages are not that good. He's like a career like 35% 3-point shooter, and it's because he just takes so many bad off the dribble threes or deep threes. So if they were able to, create a new offense that does get him better looks, some catch and shoots, I think his efficiency could go way up and the team would be way better because of it. So we'll see if, Quinn can concoct something like that and if Trey would actually be willing to buy into a system like that.
Yeah, and for their sake, I really hope they do. Zach Lowe's pretty hot on the Hawks. I don't know. He was kind of raving about them for a reason I could not understand.
Yeah, I can't get like that excited about this team because I just think there's a ceiling on these guard heavy teams. Whenever there's a team with 2 guards as their 2 best players, I just like can't put them higher than a team that has even just like one good small forward. Because they just get exposed in the playoffs.
Yeah. Hey, we've seen them make the conference finals not too long ago, which
That was a fluke.
sounds
That
yeah,
I
no, it
don't
was
I don't I don't think that'll ever happen again. I think I mean that was nice. It was a cute story, but no, they've been pretty mid since that playoff run. They have not had a whole lot of life in them.
that they have.
And
Anyway,
and and I
our
was just say closing thought, like Trey Young just got like absolutely bullied by the Celtics in the playoffs this year, and I think every team is going to start doing that from here on out. If they weren't already. So again, like I think that's just why there's a little bit of a ceiling on that team. Cool. Anyway, though, so we kind of said pick them there, 7 and 8 between Hawks, Pacers. Who do you have for 9? These will essentially be like the last 2 potential play-in spots here at 9 and 10. Teams we think have a chance to get into the playoffs.
yeah, so my ninth, I got the Hornets, which yeah, I don't know. I feel like that might be a hot take, but the reasoning there is that last year they sucked, but Melo didn't play. Miles Bridges was on probation, if you will. And yeah, the year before they had 41 wins with those 2 guys relatively healthy. So yeah, simple logic. I think Bridges is set to miss 10 games. I think Melo, is relatively injury prone. I could see him missing a bit of time, but as long as he stays relatively healthy, I think they've got a decent enough group. And adding Brandon Miller, Nick Smith Jr., I don't know too much about him. I know he's had a couple okay summer league games. But yeah, I don't know.
I think it's a good take actually. I think I'm also aligned with that one. I had them at 10, so still in that play-in zone, just one spot lower. But
Mm.
I went back and forth between like my 8, 9, and 10. Like at one point I had the Hornets at the 8th seed, and I was like, maybe that's a little too ambitious for them. But I do think they're on the come up. Last year they struggled. No LaMelo, no Miles Bridges. But the 2 prior seasons they nabbed the 10th seed. So like that's kind of been their zone when they're healthy. So I don't see any reason why they can't get back to that. The team's gotten older. It's gotten better. Like they've added a lot of really good guys. I think Miller's a good fit there. And if the starting lineup is LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and Mark Williams holding down the defense at center, I think that's a really good starting lineup. And then what you got Gordon Hayward, Oubre, and PJ Washington off the bench. Like that's a deep team too. Like that's just a good roster. So I think one of the biggest questions would be like, you know, can LaMelo take that next step and be more than just like this like flashy superstar kind of guy and start actually contributing to wins? But I think this is the year that they can do it.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think Melo is an excellent player. Last year, obviously, he had the ankle thing, didn't play much. And when he did play, it kind of felt like he was just dicking around, for lack of a better term. He was just kind of out there hucking a bit. The whole roster was a bit um lacking at throughout the that last year. So, I kind of expect a rejuvenated group, Melo, to definitely come out looking a lot better than he did last year. So yeah, I think 9 is a good spot to put them, but 9 or 10, I kind of expect them to sneak into the play in.
Yeah, that's what I think too. My biggest concern though is I know teams are starting to reach out about guys like Oubre and Washington because they do have so much depth at the forward position. So my only concern would be like, do they decide to essentially punt one more year, get another high pick, and then try to be good? Because what they could do is they could essentially like thin out their bench and trade like Oubre and Washington for draft picks, and then you know be good the next year. So they could do that. I hope they don't. I like the roster as is, but that is a minor concern. And I also just don't know what to do with Hayward. Like, do you keep starting Hayward? Do you have him come off the bench? I think you probably move him to a bench role to let Miller start at small forward. I'm sure that's what they will do. But if they don't, I think that'd be unfortunate. It would probably, hinder the growth of this team.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think, yeah, the punting concern is valid because obviously I think, they have a ceiling of 8 or 9th, and like, do they really want to compete that hard for that? Miles Bridges is going to miss some time. So yeah, hoping they don't punt, but they definitely have still some holes in that roster. It's kind of still a pretty young group and core. So, I think we can expect some moves potentially by the end of this offseason, maybe before the deadline. Um, and yeah, LaMelo's ankle too. I mean, as someone who's sprained their ankle really badly, I think he might be prone to those. I don't know, but I don't think it's out of the question that he kind of has that reoccurring problem if he's hasn't rehabbed it properly. So anyway,
We'll see. Hopefully the offseason does them well and we get a healthy LaMelo next season because this Hornets team could be very fun to watch. Like, even if they're not that good, they'll still be a very good league pass watch.
yeah, I loved watching them play. I hate to admit because they were pretty barren last year, but Terry's always like such a good time.
Yeah.
Mark Williams was fun to see towards like the latter half of last year, and then anytime LaMelo's playing, it's like showtime. The passes he makes and the threes he takes sometimes. So
Yeah. And now you get, Bridges back in that offense. I think he'll get a lot of alley oops from that.
for sure.
Miller can also jump. He's had some great highlights in summer league, even with his struggles. So I think it's be a good team to watch. Anyway, I had them at 10. At 9, I had the Brooklyn Nets, which is a team that I really struggled to place.
Me
When I think
too.
when I first did this, I had them at 13, so like bottom 3 teams. And I was like, is this too low? Because they do have players that I like. And although they don't have these superstar caliber guys, I think they've got a lot of really solid dudes. I think their defense is going to be awesome. And I think one of the biggest things is they just don't have an incentive to lose. And I think there are other teams that are going to have that incentive to lose. They're going to naturally knock them beneath them. And I think they'll have a pretty good thing going with, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Claxton's an amazing defender. Dinwiddie's still a really good player. You're probably not gonna get anything out of Ben Simmons, but I think that team is still pretty solid. And I feel like the defense would be good enough to sneak them into the play-in tournament.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, they're definitely tough to place. Last year they had 45 wins, but we put a huge asterisk next to that, obviously, because
Yeah, that hardly even counts. Half of that
right.
was with Durant and Kyrie.
I was like searching for their record without Durant and Kyrie, but the best I got was post All Star. They were 11-13. Um, Mikal was averaging like 26 points on the Nets. He was looking like an All Star. They added DSJ this offseason. They added Lonnie Walker, Darius Baisley, and then they had the 21st and 22nd pick, Noah Clowney and Derek Whitehead, I believe is how we say those names. Lost Utah, so they got marginally better, I think, with their offseason moves. But Mikal is I think the star of that team. Dinwiddie's very good, and Cam Johnson is also very good. Dorian Finney-Smith too. So, like you said, a great defensive team with Claxton as well, helming that defense. But
Do you
I don't
think
know.
Simmons is gonna play?
Oh my god.
Because if and I know this is like such a mess and a can of worms to open, but if Simmons does play, that is such a good defensive lineup. Like Simmons, McHale, Claxton on the court all together. And Cam Johnson not amazing, but he's huge. That is an awesome defense. That defense can switch everything.
Yeah. Um, I hope he plays. I've always kind of liked Ben Simmons. I like, kind of infamously kind of thought he was going to be like an incredible all-time player, and then the downfall has been so much worse than expected, and like now we're just in this like weird nebulous space where like it's so hard to tell what we're going to see out of him or get out of him. And from last year where I thought he might bounce back a little, he showed a bit of some signs that he was going to be okay, but then like he was like a DNP for like the end of the season. So I think at this point, kind of my eggs are kind of in the basket of like I don't think he's gonna play or contribute much ever again. But I hope he
Yeah,
does.
that that might be fair. I mean, if you just kind of like look at the way it's been going, that's how it's been. He's just like essentially opted not to play. I would love for him to. I'd love to just see how that Nets team looks. I think it's a good opportunity for him because I think there's a lot of pressure in Philly for him to play because they were trying to compete. There was a lot of pressure when he first came to Brooklyn when they had like KD and Kyrie, but I think a lot of that is gone now as they kind of see themselves more like a middle of the pack team. So I think it'd be a good opportunity for him to try to come back and contribute. Will he though? I don't know. I don't know. Feels unlikely. And that's also why the Nets are so hard to place. Because if he doesn't play at all, then I feel kind of weird about having a team in the play-in when they've got a guy on a $30 million contract per season who's not even playing. It's like choosing not to play. Like that's just a huge portion of their cap just like gone into nothing. And that
Yeah.
matters. Like that 30 million could be used on something so much better that could actually help them contribute to becoming a playoff team. So if they get nothing out of Simmons, then I could very easily see them dropping a couple of spots here.
Yeah. And it's like then it's like even if he does play, are they better with the version of him they get? I don't know. Like we definitely saw when he played last year the what that entailed for the offense and how he was just unable to score. Like he was like it was like he could not go anywhere near the basket. There was like what's it called when like the two opposite poles of a magnet, like whatever the opposite of attraction is, like he had to pass up every time he had the ball. It
Yeah,
was weird, hard to see, hard to watch.
yeah, absolutely. And that is kind of the struggle. Is like even if you get him out there, is his defense and passing worth it? Because it's to the point where whoever's covering him is just gonna go stand in the paint essentially, and they're gonna have like essentially five defenders on four offensive players. So I don't even know if he comes back if he's gonna be good enough to be a starter, but we'll have to see. We gotta see him get on the court first before we can even really figure out how they're gonna use him.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why the Nets are so hard to place. I think even outside of Simmons, it's kind of a mystery team because of the short sample size we got of this group. But I guess my closing thoughts are I think Mikel is gonna, potentially be an all-star. Probably have to go back and look at like who he'd be making it over, but I think he's such a talent and he's gonna have plenty of opportunity. And I think he's averaging like 24, 25 points easily next year. Love Cam Johnson as well. And I think it's gonna
Love Cam
be,
Johnson. Great contract.
yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun group, some young guys, some unproven guys. So they kind of have that, you know, dark horse potential to make a play-in spot. I don't know if that counts as being a dark horse, but or
I don't know.
bottom half of the playoffs.
Good enough though. Yeah. So essentially my 9-10 was Nets Hornets. Your 9 was Hornets. Who was
Right.
your 10?
Yeah. So my 10 was actually the Magic, and then the Nets were my 11th.
Got it. Cool. Yeah, I figured I have the Magic a little bit higher. I know you're a big fan of the
Yeah.
Magic. I have Magic 11, so I think we're right there.
It's a reoccurring theme on this pod that I love to praise this Magic team.
There's a Magic podcast now.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're
this is
one of our preferred teams.
yeah. They had a super slow start to last year and then they heated up. I don't have it in front of me, but post All-Star break, I think they were more wins than losses. I can't confirm that. Um, but ultimately they didn't lose anything this offseason. They got Anthony Black in the draft, Joe Ingles for chemistry purposes. No idea why they signed him, but cool.
Good for
Jet
Joe. He's a
Howard
good
too.
guy. Yeah, Joe deserves to still be in the league. He's awesome.
For sure. Um, don't know why the Magic signed him regardless. He's old.
He's
He's
not he's
slow.
not he's not gonna play. He's not gonna play. He's just there for the vibes.
I guess they gave him like a decent contract too. Like,
God.
I don't know, 2 years and a bit too much money. I forget the exact number, but anyway, they won 34 games last year. I think they could get 39 because they started the year like on a 10-game losing streak or something like that. So, I think for sure they will be better. I think Paolo's going to be that much more comfortable. Franz another year under his belt. You just need Wendell Carter to be slightly more than in the past, and I think you've got yourself a play-in team. I hope so, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, and I wonder, and this just came to mind. I totally forgot about it, but is Jonathan Isaac gonna play next year? I forgot he existed,
I forgot he existed.
but I think he might be back. And he was really good before he got hurt. Granted, he has not played basketball in 2+ years, so I imagine that's probably hindered his development. I don't really expect him to be that good, but I mean, good versatile defender. Like that'd be a good guy to have coming off the bench too, on top of the young guys they have.
Yeah, if he's done promoting his book, Why I Stand,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I tour is over, then
a, a true American hero,
yeah,
author, scholar.
the cover of that book, man. Anyway,
Yeah, oh my God.
no, but you're right. But he came back from that injury and he looked pretty good. And then I kind of forget what happened, but I think he re-injured or something pretty quickly. We didn't see much of
Yeah,
him.
yeah, it was something new. He's definitely pretty fragile, but I agree. I do like the Magic. The Magic were a team that I think I did some reshuffling. I think at one point I had them around like 9 or 10, and I just barely dropped them out of there. The big question mark for me is like, is Banchero going to take that next step? And that's essentially how I decided to put the Nets higher. And because I was essentially just like, I think Mikal Bridges is going to be the better player next year than Banchero. So I just think they've got that like better high end talent, and I think Banchero like is on the fast track to be like all-star superstar, but I just don't know if he's going to get there in his second season. He had some efficiency issues his rookie year that I think will probably persist for at least one more year.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And yeah, the Nets are definitely the more experienced group. Magic, I think, have a bit more raw talent for sure. But yeah, if that talent realizes itself in Paolo and Franz, fingers crossed, 10th seed. So just
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
recap before Zoom
Go
is
for it.
us out to do a part two. Um, Hawks at 8, Hornets at 9, Magic at 10, Nets at 11 for me.
Yep.
Who's your 8 through 11?
For me it was Pacers, Nets, Hornets, Magic. And then yeah, we're gonna part two this, then we can get into like the real dumpster fire here. I have respect and admiration for all of those teams 1 through 11. But these 12 through 15 teams are all garbage. So can't wait to
Understand.
dive into it in part two. Stay tuned.
Part two coming right up.
All right, what is up? What is up? Back for part two of this. We're gonna be starting off with our 12th ranked team, and we'll get into the final three. Do you want to start us off here? I think we both have the same final four teams left. So in
Yeah,
theory, it needs to be some variation of like Bulls, Pistons, Wizards, Raptors, those four.
correct.
And that was not my order. I intentionally gave that out of order.
That was not my order either.
Okay, let's go. Who do you have for 12?
All right, let's see if we have the same. I have the Raptors at 12.
I don't. I put the Bulls there, but like I don't know. I hate both these teams.
Yeah. Bulls were my 13th.
Yeah, yeah. I think you can take your pick there. The reason I got the Raptors lower is I think the Raptors are going to bottom out intentionally because because the Raptors were pretty bad last year, and all that really happened is they let go of Fred VanVleet, and I think I'm starting to hear the whispers of teams asking about Siakam, and I don't think they're going to trade Siakam immediately, but I think they're going to start next season, not be good, not be on pace for playoffs, trade Siakam before the deadline, and then just bottom out and be terrible.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a world where that exact scenario happens that I didn't really account for, I'll be honest.
I mean, you have them 12 anyway, which is like pretty bad. So I
yes,
think
yeah.
I think we're still aligned with them being pretty trash next year.
I think there's a world where they could make the play in
I think so too. Honestly, there's probably a world where they're like way better than we think. It was just hard to put them above anybody else.
for
But I think
sure.
there is a world where this kind of clicks.
Yeah,
Because Scotty Barnes is an awesome talent still. OG Anunoby's awesome. Gary Trent's a great scorer. I love the Jakob Poeltl trade. He is such a good defender,
for sure.
such a good rebounder. He's huge. He sets hard screens. I love that pickup for this team. And if they still have Siakam, that's an awesome lineup. Very switchable. Defense is going to be awesome. So I think it's still a team that could be good. But I don't know. They just weren't that good last year, so I don't think that it's really going to change. Like they look good on paper, but it just like doesn't really translate to production on the floor.
Yeah. The changes they've had this offseason is they acquired Schroeder, who I like him, but not the most
Yeah, but
efficient
like he's not changing your life by adding Schroeder.
for sure. Also, a guy that's not going to change your life is Jalen McDaniels, who they added, and then they drafted Grady Dick, who's had a less than great summer league debut, but I kind of see the potential for
Grady
him to.
Dick is still a nice pickup. I think
I
I've
think
always been a fan. I've
yeah.
I've always kind of seen him the same way that I saw Tyler Hero in that draft, where it just like seemed like he was going to come in and be such an effective shooter that he was almost a little bit underrated. I thought Grady Dick could have gone a little bit higher, and he hasn't been great in summer league, but I don't know. I still see it. Like if he ends up being a really good 3-point shooter, I think the value in that is incredible, especially for this Raptors team that very desperately needs efficient shooting. I think that was probably their biggest issue last year. They just couldn't get the ball in the hoop, and I think they're still going to be really bad at getting the ball in the hoop. But someone like Grady Dick can help them out. Also, great
Yeah.
name. Could be top five in the
Well, see,
name
this is what I'm
draft.
saying. Everyone's top five, Harry. So
I
you have to
I
start.
I think they're like a special few though. I think it's like I think Grady Dick is like just in that tier.
Yeah. So I think right now we have Jaime, Wemby, Grady
I think
Dick. Who was mentioned earlier in this episode?
Buffkin,
Buffkin.
and then we have room for one more in the top five. I don't have the draft in front of me, so I don't. No one's really coming to mind, but I think those are like four of the top five, right? Oh, probably Scoot. There you go. Scoot's
Oh
five.
yeah, Scoot. Scoot
Scoot's
was
a
the other
great
name I
name.
mentioned.
There you go.
Okay, so
There you
I
go.
think we mentioned five names.
Yeah. There's your top five. There you go.
Um, and then so back to the Raptors. They also have a new coach, Darko Rajakovic, Serbian
Great
guy.
name.
So who knows? Maybe he's great. I don't know a damn thing about him, except that he's from Serbia, which produces great basketball talent. So
That is true.
um,
It's been a great year for Serbia.
new coach, new culture, maybe something.
Yeah.
Who who knows?
Yeah, and I think with them letting go of Fred, I think that was a little bit of a sign that, I mean, obviously, like, the Rockets overpaid him by so much that there was no way that the Raptors were gonna match that. But I could see them not, like, totally blowing it up, but I could see them just starting to shift to more of a youth movement. And
Mhm.
I think that's why it makes sense for them to trade Siakam, because I think Siakam's ready to contribute to a team that's trying to win a championship. I think he'd be a great third guy on a team like that. And I think the Raptors should just like get younger, build around Barnes. Do something like you've got Barnes, you've got Dick, you get a couple of picks maybe from Siakam, maybe just like one or two picks, maybe a young player. Then they've got those guys. You've got Pirtle, and I think that's a good young core to build around. Maybe you're bad for 1 or 2 more years, try to get some good picks, and then see what happens.
Yeah, I agree, and it'll be super interesting to see where Siakam ends up. Is this the last year of his contract, or maybe one more after this?
I think he is on expiring now, which is why everyone was saying that the Raptors were very dumb for not trading him last year.
Mhm.
Because like last year they could have got a ton more value by trading him. Whereas by waiting for him to be an expiring, it's now teams are gonna be afraid to trade for him because they're worried he's gonna walk in free agency. So
Yeah,
not the best move by Masai. I think Masai is still great, but I think he was definitely too reluctant to trade his talent that was clearly um ready to go. Because like last year they should have at least traded Fred at the deadline last year. Even if
mhm.
you just got like for anything, just get a dude, get like a pick swap in the first round, anything. Like just but you let him go for nothing. And there was no need to do that, especially when you had no chance of making playoffs.
Yeah, well said. I think that's a good point, and makes me wonder why you love Masai so much. Why you have such trust and admiration for him.
I
Well,
wouldn't say I would I think a lot of people have a lot of respect for Masai, especially after like the Kawhi Leonard move. That's
okay,
kind of legendary.
true.
Um, but I will say, like, I'm not gonna sit over and be like he's like the best GM in the league, because like I just said, I think he's waited too long to make moves with some of his bigger chips. So he's not perfect. Like the Kawhi move was amazing, but I think he could have done more the last 2 years.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have to say about the Raptors. Good luck, Raptors fans. You're gonna need it.
Yep, there are gonna be some dark days ahead of them. All right, well
Did we swap? You had
did
Bulls at 12.
yeah, did you have Bulls at 13?
Yeah, and you had Raptors at 13.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the Bulls? I don't really want to talk about them right now, so
I don't
you
really
can
want to
start you
talk
can
about
start
the
off.
Bulls.
I hate the Bulls. They're just
It
disgusting.
Yeah, it's like watching a small animal die or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to look at it. I'm just trying to turn my head. They got Torrey Craig and Javon Carter. Nice additions. Lost Pat Bev,
Okay.
so nothing happened. Let's just skip
All
over
right.
them.
Yeah, I mean, like the one thing I'm going to say is probably what we say every time is that there's a team that just doesn't realize the scenario that it's in. Um, Especially like and something I'd like to talk about is like Lonzo. Like I think Lonzo's done. That's what it sounds like. Like a lot of reports are coming out that he's definitely out for this year after missing all of last year, and his knees just may never be in good enough condition for him to be able to play NBA basketball again, which is very sad because Lonzo was very fun to watch. Um, but like that alone and like that contract where he's making like 20 plus million a year, like that alone is enough to kind of sink this Bulls team. But they're still gonna try to make it work with these guys who just like aren't that good and couldn't even put together, a positive plus minus together when they're on the floor. I don't know. I think their team that very obviously needs to blow it up, and they're in denial about it. And I think they missed their opportunity to do it last year, but they still can, and hopefully they do it eventually because like, this is torture for their fans.
Mhm. Crazy to think that Lonzo, DeMar, and Levine were at the top of the Eastern Conference like a couple years ago.
Yeah, they'll always have that like 30 game stretch.
It was a
Hang a
fluke, and it really
hang a
was.
banner. Yeah, it wasn't fluke. Yeah, there was no way that that was going to keep up.
But it is sad that Lonzo's career seems to be. Yeah, I mean, obviously he was in his prime, and then to have that taken away from him sucks. And yeah, I don't think there's a team I would rather be a fan of least, if I phrase that correctly, than the Bulls. That's just they're in a tough spot. And so yeah, hopefully they start to blow it up. Um yeah, and I kind of just want to be done talking about them.
Yeah, yeah. If you're in the NBA, like either be good and compete for a championship, or be bad and get young players who eventually can compete for a championship. I think pretty much every team has figured out that meta except for the Bulls, as far as the East goes, at least. So I think I'm done talking about them. They don't really know what they're doing. I don't really. Their front office is very questionable. I don't think they're worthy of controlling an NBA team. So we'll move on. They're sad. They suck.
Yeah, on to some interesting hot takes right here for the 14th and 15th.
Yeah, let's go. These teams are awesome. All right, who do you have for 14?
My extremely hot take. There's a bit of foreshadowing on the last episode. I think the Wizards aren't going to be the worst team in the East, and they will snag that 14th seed.
That's not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. The Wizards are definitely gonna be the worst team in the league, or at least in the East. They suck. And it's not even that I think the Wizards suck that bad, but I love the Pistons. I think the Pistons have like a very cheeky roster, and I love the young dudes that they've put together. I would be surprised if somehow the Wizards team with like Kuzma and Poole ends up being better than this young Pistons team.
And Tyus Jones
Okay, all right.
and
Is
Gallinari.
is Tyus Jones the worst starting point guard in the league?
Um,
Yeah.
no,
Who is?
his brother Trey Jones on the San Antonio Spurs.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. They're both the worst.
Um, who starts for
Po- Point
the
point
Lakers?
guard is a really deep position. And I think most teams have like a very quality starting point guard. I think the only teams I could kind of throw out now would be honestly maybe the Celtics. I don't really know who our point guard is going to be.
Derek
Is
White.
Derek White going to start there? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not really a point guard, but like he's definitely better than the Joneses. Um, Raptors. I don't know who they're starting. Maybe they'll start Barnes at point guard though. And I think Barnes is better than them.
All right, point taken. But Tyus Jones, some people who I would call pessimistic and haters will say he's the worst starting point guard, but big brained, optimistic thinkers will say he is the best bench point guard. And that's
I
how I
agree. I think he's an excellent backup point guard. I think he's like one of the best backup point guards. But he was really one of starting jobs, so now he gets to start on the worst team. Um,
second worst team, second worst team, second worst team.
yeah, the Wizards are a team that, and they have drafted so poorly. Like I don't even like know who their picks have been recently. Like they took like Corey, Kispert. He hasn't been that good. Johnny Davis has been trash. Avdia Avdia I like, but he's like real talk. He's just like he's not that good. Um, and
Bilal.
I yeah, I do. He's cool. I think that was a cool pick. I like them taking the Frenchman, but they have just it's been dud after dud in the draft. I can't remember the last time they picked someone who actually ended up being like even a starting caliber guy. Like they also took Rui, who was good, but then they traded him. So and he's also not like that good. I don't know. They just haven't been able to find talent in the draft. And I just think the roster is gonna be really barren outside of Kuzma and Poole.
I hear you. I just think there's a bit more experience on that roster than there is on the Pistons roster. Cade's coming off an injury, I think, and I think just the Pistons desperately lack scoring. And I'm going to be watching the Pistons. Do not get me wrong. Asar, I love the Thompson twins. I am
They're
potentially
so
hotter
good.
in them than I am Scoot and Brandon Miller.
They,
That's not
yeah, they
official,
they're
but
they're unreal. I definitely think like the eyeball test was crazy, and I think the eyeball test is like really good for all those guys. They all look
yeah,
like they could be future all stars, but the Thompson twins play like nobody else. I like
they
don't know how to
hound.
explain it, but they look so weird when they play. They just
Yeah,
like they move in such a unique way that only they do, and it's incredible. And they're good and they're super athletic, crazy athletic. it's like they're like made in a lab to play basketball too, because I feel like they're good at everything. They're so good on defense. They get so many defensive stats. They're both incredible passers. They're
Mhm.
both great scorers. You know, the 3-point shot isn't all the way there yet, but it feels like they're gonna figure that out and just both be incredible. I don't know. I hope they play together at some point. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Back.
I mean, I think they've played together up until this point in their careers.
Yeah.
But nobody's turning on overtime elite. So hopefully they do get to play on a team in the NBA for sure. But yeah, like they hound people on defense. Like they are so athletic. They they're like a shadow on the on ball defenders, picking up full court. And then some of the passes those guys have made. Again, like you mentioned in the past show, they're like their stat lines are like 3-4 steals, 3-4 blocks, 5-6 assists, some rebounds, some points.
Yeah, they're gonna be awesome. My one of my biggest questions about the Pistons is gonna be how they work Asar into the rotation. Because I think he's gonna be so good that he probably should start and play 30 plus minutes immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But although like the Thompson twins are big, they're both natural guards. And the Pistons already have like Cade and Ivy. So it's like, how do you balance that rotation? I think you just start all three. I think Asar is big enough where you just kind of put him in a power forward, but you can have him
Mm-hmm.
take up the ball as much as he wants to. He could be the best passer out of those three guards. Because Ivy's definitely a score first guard. Cade is very balanced and is also a great passer, but Asar is incredible and like could end up being the best guy to operate the offense.
Yeah. Unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know. I think they will, let Cade keep being the primary ball handler regardless of what Asar shows.
Yeah, and I like Cade a lot too, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I just
But
want Asar to start and get some touches.
yeah, and all three should start. And all three, I think, would be fine on defense with Jaden Ivey, who's extremely athletic and shows some upside as a defender, probably being the weakest of the three. Like Cade is 6'8". He can guard some small forwards.
Yeah. I kind of forgot about how big he was. I was like, I knew he's big, but yeah, him and Asar are both like massive. They're both in the bodies of a small forward. They just happen to play point guard.
But yeah, outside of those three who are still very young and very raw talents, like, I don't think they have too
I
much else.
I think they're gonna have a cheeky starting lineup as long as they don't trade Bogdanovich. Because then all of a sudden it's kind of
Oh,
like
I
you
forgot
slap
about that.
Bogdanovich in at power forward, some veteran talent. Still an incredible scorer. Like I swear he's averaged like 18 points per game in the last like 10 seasons, shooting
Oh, and I
like
forgot about
40% from
Duran
three.
too. My God.
Yeah, and then you start Duren at center, who's been awesome.
Duran is
Awesome
awesome.
defender. Like it could be like it probably wouldn't be like a great defensive team, just because I think I think Bogdanov should probably slow that down a little bit, but like Duren can really hold it down in the paint, and he's got some skill in offense. Nothing crazy, but he's like a really good lob catcher, really good at like hounding the offensive glass and getting putbacks. He's an impact guy, and
Yeah.
like I feel like the day of the double double center has kind of passed by to where teams aren't like super interested in these kind of guys. But I think you're as good as Duren is, you can still make a huge impact.
Yeah. Duran had slipped my mind, but I love him as a prospect, and I think he's yeah, super active on the glass, super high upside as a defender, and yeah, a good enough scorer as well. Like he will get you, you know, 12 plus points, I think, this season.
Yeah.
But I still think the Wizards are going to be 14th. I like how this is like the biggest point of the
Yeah,
episode.
this is the biggest debate. Who's going to be the worst team in the East? But one other thing I want to touch on with the Pistons, probably where they're going to struggle. Obviously, age is going to be an issue, and the bench is going to be very bad for this Pistons team. Like they just extended Beef Stew for like I forget exactly what it was, but I think he's making like 20 million a year, and I don't really know why they did that. I love Beef Stew. I think he's fun. I think he's a good player. But you've got Wiseman and Duran. I don't really see where he fits in. I don't like their experiment of trying to play Beef Stew at power forward. I just don't think he can do that.
Mhm.
He's a versatile enough defender to where you can get away with it on defense, but on offense it's just like a mess. And they have him stand in the corner and like try to take corner threes, but he's not nearly a good enough shooter to do that. So I don't know if I'm all in on this Beef Stew experiment. And then Wiseman's looked pretty good in summer league, but I'm still not totally sure how good he's going to be. And then pretty much outside that, I don't even know who's on this Pistons bench. So it's gonna be pretty gross when the bench mob comes in.
Yeah. I pulled it up. I mean, Isaiah Livers showed a bit
Okay.
of upside last year. He's
Yeah,
he's
I don't like his name. I think his name's gross. I
he's a
think he would
second
go in the
round.
bottom of a name draft. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure, for sure.
But no, he's an athletic forward. He shoots the ball fairly well. Picked him up in.
God, Killian Hayes. Forgot about Killian Hayes. Oh my God. As long as he's on this roster, they will never be good.
Come on. You're right though. Joe Harris. I don't think he will ever be a relevant any NBA player again. Maybe though.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened, but I think he just kind of lost it. I think he's done. All of a sudden, he's just not making threes, and that's his only job. And he's
Yeah.
just like an absolutely horrid defender. So
He was
I don't think
injured
he's
for a
got
bit.
much of a role. Yeah, but like when he played, he was very bad. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think his best days are behind him. Very brief prime.
Hey, they added Monte Morris, who's okay, and then they have Alec Burks.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Probably one of the better backup point guards in the league, I would say. I like Monte Morris.
He's no Tyus
Um,
Jones.
yeah. Tyus Jones isn't a backup though. It's like he can't be
True.
in this discussion anymore.
Yeah. All right, but I think we have like a you've got the Pistons at 14th. I've got the Wizards at 14th. Gentlemen's bet. We'll check in next year. I'm confident that my Wizards will not be the worst team in the East.
All right, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how this take pans out. This could be a clippable moment when the Wizards end with like 20 wins, but who knows? Um,
No.
here, but before we wrap, let's do one more thing.
Yep.
Pick one of the teams. I would say 10 and below that you think has the best chance to be like a surprise riser into the playoff picture. So like not even like 9 or 10, but like could get into like 6, 7, 8 range.
Um, okay, I like this question. It would be between the Nets and the Raptors, I think. The Nets I had at 11th. I know you had them a bit higher. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll just be fun and say the Raptors, I think. Um, with the new coach, Siakam is an incredible player. Maybe there's kind of an addition by subtraction thing with Van Fleet there. Even though,
Could
I
be.
think
It'll let them play a bigger lineup if they want to. Maybe they can go all out and they're switching, even though they lost Delano. Was it
Bantam.
Bantam?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bantam.
he's now on the Celtics. He would have been perfect. 6'9" point guard, slap him in that lineup. But I like the Raptors.
Yeah, and maybe a change of coach can give them that upside, that higher ceiling. And I like Dennis Schroeder. I just like him. I think he, he has his faults. I'm not gonna like die on the Dennis Schroeder hill, but I think when he has the opportunity in front of him to be like a primary ball handler, he can really be good for a team. That's kind of all I'll say about it. I I just like him. I just like him. I think he's a good replacement for Van Fleet. I think that's not a terrible thing. Not a terrible replacement for them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, fair enough.
yeah. They won 41 last year. I think like their ceiling is like 42, 43 this year. And then I realistically see them more at around like 35, 36, 37 wins.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a good pick. I'm eyeballing these. I remember 2 years ago I had the Pistons being the 8th seed or something like that. I was very high on them, and I always have been. I love this. I love this roster. I'm not going to pick them this year. I know better. I know this team is still too young to do anything. I think I would probably go with, and I think the way that my rankings have kind of shaken out gives me a team that you almost don't have access to because I said 10 through 15. Like I had the Hornets at 10. I think the Hornets could go a lot higher. So I think that would be kind of an easy pick. I like their depth. They've got tons of good forwards. So, maybe the switching defense will be good and they can hide LaMelo and actually get into a higher seed. And then the other one I think would probably be the Magic, just if their guys end up taking that next step. You know, like Bankero is really good now. Franz is really good now. But they kind of have this mess of guards right now, and a lot of them haven't fully panned out. Like Cole Anthony was fun, but realistically is like not great. Suggs didn't really work out, but he's still young, so maybe there's a chance for him to make a leap at some point. Then Anthony Black, I'm still, evaluating the tape on him. And then they also have Fultz. Oh my God, they've got so many point guards. If one of those guys can essentially like take another step to give them like a pseudo big three, up and coming big three between like Bankero, Franz, and one other guard, then I could see them kind of like taking that next step. Um, but I'm just not sure which of those guards it's gonna be, or if any of those guards are actually gonna take that step.
Yeah, I think you said it very well. And Ben Caro, I'm super hopeful for. I think we saw him kind of tire out towards the end of the season. So if he can really come in, pace himself a bit better, I think we might not see the huge drop off in efficiency we saw last year. He's had a summer to relax, to hone his game a bit. So I think he could really come in and be that superstar. Maybe not superstar, but take a bit of a next step. And then Franz, we've seen improvement every year. I'm a big Franz guy. So
Yeah, yeah, Franz is awesome. All right, cool. Well, I think that'll do it.
I have one last
Let us.
thing.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Go for it. What do you got?
Just a quick question. How many wins do you think the Pistons had last year? And I know they didn't have Cade,
Mm-hmm.
all that.
Mm,
How many
that's a
wins?
good question. I would bet they probably finished up around 35.
The Pistons last year,
Yeah.
they had 17.
Oh my God, that's so bad.
Abysmal.
That is insane. But I guess that does make sense. Oh my God. That means they probably really got screwed over in the lottery. But I think they got a good one in the SAR anyway.
They did get screwed
And I
over in the lottery. And I know because
yeah.
my fantasy team was attached to them.
Oh
And I
yeah.
won the championship and got the fifth pick. So
Because did they have the worst record in the league?
yeah.
They must have then.
They must
Okay,
have.
yeah. Damn. Yeah,
Yeah, Spurs had 22. Rockets had
tough for the
20
Pistons. Wemby would have been a nice fit on that team, but a SAR will still be good for them.
for sure. But that's a lot of wins they have to make up to
Yep.
be
And that
14.
reminds me of one thing I wanted to mention. Um, we do not have any like DraftKings affiliations. Like we're not stooping to that. But something I did see today was that the over under on the Hornets wins for next season is set around 30 games. I think it was like 29 and a half.
Oh wow.
I feel like that's a good bet to take the over on that. I think they're gonna pretty easily clear 30 games next season, probably be closer to 40. So maybe make a little bit of money.
No affiliation, guys. And but that's not to say we wouldn't take a check,
Yeah,
right?
for sure, for sure. We would
We're not
consider. We would
above that.
consider.
But gambling, deadliest addiction. We're morally against it, but a check is a check. We're gonna take it. And we'll
Yes,
always
gamble
be the front.
responsibly.
Yeah.
Call
We'll,
1-800 gambler if you have any problems.
yeah. What's funny is, oh, okay. Well, they always say that for Massachusetts, like when Zach Lowe does the promotion,
Yeah.
they give the disclaimer for only a few states that have legalized it, and Massachusetts is always one.
Oh my God.
Well,
Okay.
okay. That's the Eastern power rankings for you guys. I think an over under episode could be in the works soon.
Yeah, whenever we get that DraftKings sponsorship, that's when we'll do the official over under episode for wins and losses.
And Adam suggested that to us, so that would be a fun guest episode with him. We're hoping to do some guest episodes in the future, share the wealth a bit because this has been so much fun. Then I guess we have to do a Western Conference, obviously power rankings soon.
Yep. Yep. West is coming. Yep. Definitely drop us some comments if you want to, maybe make a guest cameo on the pod and also react to our rankings. Let us know what we got right, what teams you think we overrated, what teams we underrated. Feel free to
Please.
tweet us your own power rankings of the Eastern Conference.
Do we have a Twitter officially or not yet?
I have one. But we do need to make a channel official Twitter. So our promise to y'all will be that will be coming this week.
Okay. That's your promise, so you do it, right?
You're the producer.
Yeah,
Feels like your job.
you're making the promises. Okay, well, one of us will make it.
TBD who makes
We'll
it, but we'll
plug
be
it.
coming.
And then I guess very, very last thing is the last two videos, guys, let's pick up the views. We were averaging 30 and they're like 15 per. And I know I messed up and uploaded it with some editing errors, but I expect better from you guys. We're disappointed. No,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
was fun.
If y'all want the bonus episodes, we need to see more views. We need to be at least in the
Smash that
20s. All
like.
right. We're not settling for 15. Yes. Send it to everyone you know. Send it to your mom, your dad, your friends. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and stay tuned for our next week's episode.
Yeah, and if you're not going to bed with the podcast on and queuing up every single episode on repeat,
Yes, leave it
you're not a
running. Leave
real
it
fan.
running.
You're not a real fan. But yeah, that's all I had to say. Um, cue the music. I guess I've been putting music at the end of the episode, so
Yep. All right. Well,
royalty
peace and
free
love.
iMovie. Peace and love.